Welcome back to Point of View, where we present all sides of the story, including yours. Tonight, we have a presidential candidate joining Chris Berg live, Rick Santorum. Now, let's get right to it. Chris, tomorrow's caucus in Minnesota is going to be yet another turning point for Santorum and the other candidates in this race for president.
Right now, he's leading the polls in Minnesota. What else is interesting, according to the latest Rasmussen poll, he's the only GOP presidential candidate right now that will beat President Barack Obama in a head-to-head matchup in the general election. With me right now, Senator Rick Santorum. Senator, thanks for joining me tonight on the Hot Box. I want to start with foreign policy for a moment due to some of the things that have happened as of late and move on to the economy and jobs. Today, the U.S. Embassy shuts down in Syria due to what's happening there. Last week, Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta says that Israel may attack Iran in the next couple months. The Muslim Brotherhood gaining strength and power in Egypt. Sir, if you were president today, how would you handle the situation in the Middle East?
Well, I would be friends to our friends, and I would make sure that our allies respect us, enemies respect us, and if necessary, fear us. And that is the exact opposite of what this president is doing. He's leaving the embassy in Syria not over protest of Assad and his butchery of his people and his alliances with Iran, but he's leaving because Syria won't assure security for our embassy. That's going out with your tails between your legs. It's a sign of weakness in that region of the world. Outing Israel, which is basically what the administration did, outing our ally, providing intelligence to the world community, which is very quick always to vilify Israel for defending itself, is probably the worst betrayal of Israel by a president in decades. And yet here's President Obama betraying our friends and not only outing them, but also criticizing them for contemplating doing something to protect themselves. And of course, Egypt, where we turned our back on our friend and ally Hosni Mubarak, no great friend in the sense of no great man in the sense of his activities, but we knew that the most powerful force in the alternative to Mubarak was the radical Muslims of the Muslim Brotherhood. So here you have a situation where Obama has made the case worse, and every single case has made our national security less secure.
I want to move on to the economy and jobs. Obviously, that's on the top of mind of everybody here in America. And I want to hear this from you. I want to go back to last Friday for a moment. The unemployment rate goes down to 8.3%. It's been trending downward. The Dow last Friday hits a 4-year high. The NASDAQ hits an 11-year high. If I'm President Obama, I say, hey, look, I inherited a mess. Things are going in the right direction. I just need 4 more years to get us back on track. How do you combat that campaign message, Senator?
Well, I mean, things are still pretty bad. 8.3% unemployment is still historically incredibly high levels, and he came in with unemployment lower than that. And his unemployment rate spiked dramatically in spite of, in fact, because of many of the efforts. In addition, you didn't mention the fact that he's accumulated about $5 trillion in national, will contribute $5 trillion in national debt, which will hamper our ability, our government's ability to reach any kind of fiscal solvency and be able to help grow our economy in the future or fund our security priorities. Now, the president has actually a very, very weak record, and you're looking at the growth that is being predicted by the Congressional Budget Office. We're talking about less than 2% growth. Things are not turning around because this administration continues to hammer business with more taxes, more regulation, and policies that are anti-business.
Senator, so let's talk about you. You take over, you win the general election, you become president of the United States of America. Walk us through the first 100 days, the number one thing that you do to get people back to work in those first 100 days.
Well, first we have to remove this huge regulatory burden that Barack Obama's put in place. He's passed over 300 regulations that cost business over $100 million a year. It's just billions and billions of dollars of cost, uncertainty of what's up next, and what. Then you have Obamacare, which is which has to be repealed to take that off the back of small businesses that we have, that are in this country and that are trying to survive. So if you look at all of the things that we need to do, economics has to be first. We've got to cut the spending. We've got to reduce the tax burden, reduce the regulatory burden, open up the Keystone Pipeline, start those construction projects that the radical environmentalists have shut down, get energy prices down, you'll see this economy turn around in a heartbeat.
Speaking about jobs, there was a debate in Florida at the end of January. A couple of your opponents, Newt Gingrich and Mitt Romney, were asked about the sugar program. They essentially said, get rid of it. We don't need it. Right here in the Red River Valley, that's a $3 to $5 billion a year industry, creates well over 1,300 jobs. Are you a proponent of the sugar program or against it, and why?
Yeah, I've never been a proponent. Look, I come from the largest confection state in the country. That's where Hershey's and Mars and a whole bunch of other things are made, and we pay double what the world pays for sugar in this country. And I'm for markets, and I'm for allowing markets to work. And I'm, as I have with all the other commodity programs, I would be for a phase out of the program to allow people to adjust. But these commodity programs are things of the past. And frankly, we look at industries and they need to be able to compete instead of costing consumers more for really a basic staple of our life.
So just so I'm clear, Senator, essentially you're saying get rid of the sugar program?
Yeah, I think, as I said before, with all the other subsidy programs, that we need to phase them out. And I don't think I think it's fair when you have a subsidy program in place to get rid of it immediately. But a phase out is something that I would support.
Senator, I know that you're like many of us here in the Valley. You've got a family. You've got 7 kids. I want to ask you this. When you look at America and you look at what's going on across the rest of the world, what keeps you awake at night?
Well, I really look at Iran as the epicenter of where that could things could erupt. That relationship that they have with the Islamists in the region, as well as even here in our own hemisphere with Cuba and Venezuela and training camps here in this hemisphere, and building you see the Venezuelans building missile capabilities. This is a concern. Again, looking around the world, I've got greater concerns here in this country with respect to the things that this administration has done. But around the world, Iran is and a nuclear Iran is something that we cannot let happen. It will fundamentally change the security posture of our country and make for a much more destabilized world and a much more dangerous world and dangerous America.
Senator, I heard that your daughter Bella is doing much better, so I want to say thank you very much for your time. I'm glad that she's doing great. Know that she's in our thoughts and prayers, and good luck tomorrow in the Minnesota, Colorado caucus, and Missouri as well.
Well, thank you. I look forward to being in Minnesota tomorrow. Looking forward to coming up to North Dakota. We're gonna go up there and campaign hard in North Dakota too.
Thank you very much, Senator. Tomorrow, again, Minnesota caucuses kick off tomorrow night around 7 o'clock. There's a lot of challenges we face as a nation right now. We touched on just a couple of them. Obviously, what's going on in the Middle East. You look at jobs and the economy here. There's education, healthcare. That's what I want to know from you tonight. Who do you think wins this presidential election, and what's the biggest challenge that we face as a nation? Stephanie?